Good morning and welcome to Manna in the Morning. I'm Adele Tiat and I'm coming to you live from Tilbach in South Africa, as I always do. Today I want to ask you, who is at your table? Psalms 23 verse 5 in the Good News Bible says, "You prepare a banquet for me where all my enemies can see me. You welcome me as an honored guest and fill my cup to the brim." The Easy Read version says it like this: "You prepared a meal for me in front of my enemies. You welcomed me as your honored guest. My cup is full and spilling over." And then the Old King James says, "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over." What stands out to me in that verse is that my enemies are watching, but they're not at the table. And I want to tell you today, do not give your enemy a place at your table. And then I'm talking about spiritual enemies. Sometimes that applies for physical enemies too, but let's just stick to talking about the spiritual ones today. I find myself sometimes, more often than not, and especially the harder it gets. And it's interesting that this verse follows the one that speaks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. When we go through hard times, it's easier to give the devil a place at the table. It happens subtly and we don't realize it. So when we sit at God's table and we feast on what He prepared for us, we feast on promises, provision, truth. But when we allow the enemy to come and sit down at the table and have something to say, he will feed us lies and poison. And he will draw us away from the intimacy that we have with God. This is an intimate table with the Lord. And that's where our strength lies. In our intimate time with Him. In our knowing Him. In our looking deep into His eyes and knowing who He is. And that He will take you through. So do not today or ever allow the devil a place at your table to tell you that you're not going to make it. To tell you that God is going to be unfaithful. To tell you any of the negative things that comes up in your mind. Cast them out. They are vain imaginations that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Cast them down. Reject them. And please do not come into agreement with them. Stay in agreement with God only. So that's my little tiny nugget for today. Just think about and be aware who is at your table. And you'll know who that is by listening to the voices that you hear. Is it voices of love and encouragement, or are they voices of fear and trepidation? My very first post for Manna in the Morning was about faith versus fear. And this is one way that we are drawn away from faith into fear, is when we allow the devil a place at the table God set for us. So that's my encouragement for you today. Love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.